Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of Deportes Nation. Today we find ourselves at Houston Sports Park, the home, if you will, of the Houston Dynamo as they start the 2024 season. I'm Alex Parra, with me, Victor Araiza. Victor, we find ourselves here in the cold, if you will, kind of starting off this season, a long way from where the season ended last year in respect to all of what's coming ahead of us, but really only a few weeks after the last Dynamo game against LAFC.
Yeah, there was short off season due to the playoff run, obviously getting deep into the Western Conference final. And it's going to be a short start as well because they're going to go straight into the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So a lot of tournaments for Houston. Depth's going to be tested. Obviously, they're no longer a surprise team, right? They've seen what Hector Herrera can do in this league. Not that it should have been a surprise, but I think after that first season we've seen a revelation, Griffin Dorsey, Eric Spiachenko, the arrival of him. A good team, I think, all around.
We had the opportunity to speak to Pat Onstead. He came out and spoke to the media on the second day technically here of camp. He spoke about many things, among them that he didn't feel that his team was quite ready to be the top point getter in the MLS.
Yeah, I have to agree because I think that's a very top bar. I know St. Louis won the Supporter Shield last year. They were close to winning Supporter Shield as an expansion side. I correct. Cincinnati won it, but again, just you need that consistency, that team. They didn't really have injuries last year. That could be something that comes into play this year. Additions still, the big question is the goals, and I think if they are able to figure out that attack and they get started out early, then maybe they can. But I don't think it's something that, as of day one, they can say for sure.
GM Pat Onstead had a lot to say. Here's some of his comments from earlier today. Goals and expectations, meaning what goals have you set out for this season internally, and what expectations do you have?
Yeah, the biggest one for us is, and we'll say this every year, is we need to qualify for the playoffs. It gives you a chance to go win a trophy. You're 5 wins away, or 6 wins away, I guess now, the way the playoffs have changed, away from winning 5 wins from winning a trophy. So it's important for us to always be in that picture. So finding a way to make sure we're in the playoffs. That's number one. And then number two is can you go snag another U.S. Open Cup, a Leagues Cup? Can you have a good run in something else? I think we have a good team. Well, I'd love to say we're a Supporter Shield team. I think we're still a few pieces away from that. But I do think this is a playoff team, and I think the guys come in with that expectation. But at the same token, we're going to have a target on our back, and we've got to get back to work, and we've got to get better. If we stay the same in our league, we'll get bypassed. So we've got to get better at what we're doing.
How soon are you looking to maybe make some acquisitions?
Well, certainly in this window. So I'd love to say right now, to be honest, we don't have anything that's percolating or in the midst of something happening. We have a lot of kind of what's the expression again? Within the fire, you got goes. Thank you. So we're getting there, but we're certainly not at a stage where I'd see a signing imminent in the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
And still quite a bit of uncertainty, if you will. Transfers, what's going to happen in the course of the next month. There's been rumors about Toro Farson, his potential exit, the saga with Coco Carrasquilla. I mean, that's always kind of up in the air. And that really, I think, it's what dictates them getting another signing because that DP spot, right? Sebastian Ferreira's back, but they haven't been able to really shop him. From what we saw from last year. So I think that's, for those wondering, maybe what's holding the team back from getting another big star. Yeah. Salary-wise, that's kind of what Pat Onstead told us today.
That was Pat Onstead. We also spoke to head coach Ben Olsen. And Ben Olsen, Victor, is always trying to, I believe, in a very human way, be consistent, not get too high, not get too low. We learned that from him last season. But he spoke really about the evolution. He spoke about his team needs to continue to improve and move on. And that made sense to me.
Yeah, obviously a guy who's coached a long time in MLS, so he knows, like you said, the ups and downs. One of the big things that's going to be a challenge is, the first season was sort of the honeymoon.
Yeah.
With Hector Herrera getting his first full preseason, this team maybe catching some teams by surprise. Now they kind of know what to look out for a little bit, right? They still got to figure out that attack. That's one thing. But I think, we'll see what challenges they come up with. Because, again, injuries weren't a part of it last year. Second year together, maybe there might be some friction between, you get used to some people. I think these are all things at play and he knows them from being a long-time coach in MLS.
Well, why don't we listen to a few more of the words that head coach Ben Olsen had for us earlier today.
Coach, the last time we talked, we were in LA. You've had some time now. Do you like the picture that was painted last year on your first year here? You as an artist?
Do I like the picture that's painted of the team?
Just in general, your first year here in Houston,
Yeah.
everything you achieved.
Listen, I don't have a lot of interest in going into last year. Other than that, I think it was it was a successful year, and anytime you win a trophy and bring a trophy back to the city, and make our goals as far as getting into the postseason and pushing this club off the field, I think, and putting us in a better light, and bringing expectations up, bringing more fans and more awareness and more media coverage out to this club. In those kind of three buckets, I think we're moving. We move the club in the right direction. Yeah, and that's not me. That's everyone involved in this project. So, but now we have to do it again, and it'll be a difficult task. Again, we won't catch anybody by surprise this year. So the games themselves get more difficult. Teams start to figure out what we're trying to do now, and so it's very important for us to evolve, and that's everywhere, the business side, on the soccer side, and the coaching, to make sure we're not staying still, because it's a very, very dangerous place to live in professional sports if you're going sideways. We got to push and get better, or we won't have a chance to have the success that we had last year.
And I don't know if Olsen necessarily set lower your expectations, but I think, obviously they set a big bar in year one with getting to the Western Conference Final. And it's not easy to go back there again. I think, if we analyze a little bit, they'd get a couple of lucky breaks. That's not to put it against the team. That's just one of those things that, they could get, bad breaks this year. We'll see how that goes. And other teams are still retooling. Obviously in the East, Miami's the big favorite, but we'll see what LAFC does. Seattle, they're always the contenders. Salt Lake, these are kind of teams that could kind of surprise some people. And if they don't make a move until the summer, that could be part of the challenge here for Houston.
Also, we had several players that came out and spoke to the media here on the second day of training camp. And among them was the goalkeeper, the starting goalkeeper for the Houston Dynamo team, Steve Clark. Steve Clark, again, thinking of last year as something that's already happened and finding a way to build on it. Steve Clark, one of the leaders of this team, but he also talked about, I've got to do my part. Stay in my carril is the word I'm using in Spanish. Stay in my lane, and not to get too carried away with being a leader.
Certainly. I think we've seen some consistency with him, but it helped him a lot to have those pieces like Sviatchenko in attack. He lost teenage Khadebe, so that's been one of the losses in the defense. Maybe it gets a little thin. We'll see what happens at the left back position with Franco Escobar still be, sort of the utility player there, if we can call it that. We can call it that, or will they find an out-and-out left back and maybe increase the depth at the other side? Steve himself knows getting to MLS Cup, getting back, it's maybe not as easy, and in his case, maybe the years are kind of starting to go by. So
don't make fun of us old people.
No, but certainly he's got less chances to win it, and that's certainly something he still wants to do. And let's see if this team has it.
So a lot here going on in the second day, and it's still early, Victor. As we kind of wrap up what Pat said, what Ben Olsen said, in this case, what one of the players, the starting goalkeeper, Steve Clark, said, it's still a long way to go. We're at the very beginning of the season. As Ben Olsen also said, there's a lot of ups and downs, Victor, and that's going to happen. Turns, things, twists and turns that we haven't even thought about. So it's still early, and I think for all of you Dynamo fans, it's patience, but also, I do have to use this word, the expectation is that at the very least they're back in the playoffs.
It is, but we do have to, again, remind people that because they won the U.S. Open Cup, there comes more competition by the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Look up the road shortly, Austin FC. That was a challenge for them, and they didn't really recover later on in the year. We've seen other teams where that sort of becomes, teams that go on and challenge, maybe not LAFC, but Toronto in the past and other teams like that have maybe gone in on the Champions Cup, and then there goes their MLS season. Seattle missed the playoffs for the first time ever. So those are the kind of things. If they advance in the Champions Cup, will that start to play in there? It helps, I think, that they have the Leagues Cup break, which is something that in previous years Dynamo hasn't had, and that helps with the summer heat and all that. But yeah, 10 months, it's a long, long season.
You mentioned summer heat. That's not what's going on right now. That's one reason, maybe, why I'm stuttering a little bit. But Victor, it's going to be great to follow the Dynamo and the MLS across the rest of this 2024 season. Controversy, the U.S. Open Cup, we'll talk about that. And the place to follow it all is here on Deportes Nation. So on behalf of Victor Araiza, I'm Alex Parra from Houston Sports Park, the beginning of the Houston Dynamo preseason. And you can follow it here on Deportes Nation.